Now that you've got all of your cards ready, it's time to figure out what you're going to weave and how much thread you're going to need to weave it. If you look online, you'll often find images like this for card weaving patterns. It's daunting, but really this is two parts. What your weaving will look like when it's done, and the pattern to set it up. In a later video, I'll describe what the Z's are and the S's are. You don't have to worry about those until you're threading. For now, you need to remember that there are 10 white squares and 22 gray squares. This means when it's time to measure out the string that you're going to use to weave, you'll need 10 lighter colored and 22 darker colored threads. Next comes the issue of how much do I need to measure out. If I want a 3-foot piece, I need to measure out 4.5 feet of string. This is 1.5 times as much. That's because weaving is a three-dimensional art form. So when you are weaving, all of the threads aren't just lying flat. They're going over and under, and under and over. And as you can see with my fingers, they're not lying flat. This means that you have something called take-up, which we account for by doing the 1.5 times the length of the desired project equals the measurement you need for your string. Now I've looked around and I found a box that is approximately 4.5 feet around. So this is what I'll use to measure my string. You can use other tools. There are things called inkle looms, warping boards, warping pegs, and warping mills. But my goal with this series is to show how you can start to weave without having to do a major investment. So I have my measurement here. I'm going to take my white thread and I'm going to start it, well, right here. I'm going to go around 1, 2. I've went around 10 times. You can see them here. Now I don't cut this string yet. Instead I'm going to take my next color, my dark, and go around 22 times. Now I have warped or measured out my threads, 10 white and 22 gray, well, blue. I cut the threads leading to my balls of yarn only. I don't cut through all of these yet. So now that I've got these cut, I can get them out of the way, and I can start tying my choke ties. What choke ties are ties that go around the entirety of this bundle. I don't know if you can see this little thread. And you tie an overhand knot, get it nice and tight, and another overhand knot. What this does is when you cut this thread, in order to have your 32 individual threads, it'll keep everything together in a nice tidy bundle instead of having them fly everywhere and scatter, create a huge tangled mess. Whenever you're measuring out a warp, always try to do choke ties. It'll make your life so much simpler. Otherwise you end up sitting on the living room floor surrounded by cards and threads and possibly cats wanting to throw this all away and never try again. Spoiler alert, I tried again. But it was a close call. Get that nice and tight. Just do a double overhand knot. Trim away the excess. I first learned to do choke ties when I was weaving fabric on a loom instead of card weaving. And I thought, this is brilliant. I don't know why I've never done this with card weaving before. So now I'm letting you know. So that you don't end up on the living room floor surrounded by cards and threads and cats and possibly crying. I've done about a hand span in between each. That works for me. There we go. Last one. And now I can take my whole bundle off, and you see I can play with it, I can manipulate it, it stays in place. So now I can just cut through the whole thing at one spot, and I have a bundle of threads ready to be threaded through cards and woven.